Shut up and sit down.
Welcome into another Read Out podcast. I am half of your co-host, Jake. Devin, how are we doing tonight?
We are doing good. We are like the Millennium Falcon, and it's a piece of junk, but we're going straight on through.
Yeah, exactly. What, that piece of garbage over there? Yeah, let's go. A piece of garbage it is.
Yep. It'll do the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs.
Yeah, right? Even though I have no idea how long a parsec is.
That's whatever. But anyway, yeah. So, of course, Jake and I are getting to experience, I'm going to cut you off a little bit here, buddy,
You're good.
some winter weather.
Oh, God.
Of course, we're not used to, I'm more used to this amount of snow, and you've lived up north a lot more, so you're used to it. But in the area that we are in right now, being next to a military base, there's a lot of people that drive in this weather who probably haven't seen snow in their life. And so you have two people, and I know you can back this up, but you have two different types of people that drive during this time of year. And one group is the people who poke, which Jake is a proud member of.
Absolutely.
And then you've got the other bunch that speed and go crazy, and I regretfully am part of that group. Advice for people who poke and speed: if you feel too comfortable on the road, and you probably should stay home, which I did today.
Yeah, seriously, dude.
And if you're out poking and you don't feel comfortable, then you should stay home as well. So,
Dude, a quick story on that. So, my wife and I went to, we wanted to go eat some crappy Chinese food last night, right? Haven't been out of the house in like 2 days because of the snow and the ice. And I'd like to focus on the ice part for a second. So I'm like, okay, honey, we're going to go get in a truck, and we're going to go eat this crappy Chinese food, right? Because every once in a while you just want some really crappy Chinese buffet, right? Or Asian buffet. It's not even really Chinese, whatever. So we're going to go to that, in E-Town, we're going to go to that, is it like family buffet or something?
oh my gosh.
And, which, you know what, like, for what it was, I was kind of impressed. Right, because usually it's garbage, and this was just like tasty garbage. But anyways, I go into the truck to get it warmed up and kind of defrosted, and I go to open the door. Damn door's frozen shut. And I mean froze, plumb shut. And I don't mean like, oh, you take a little de-icer and you open it up and everything's fine. No. I tried to crawl in through the back window. That was frozen shut. Finally, Sarah manages to wedge open the passenger side door. I crawl through and slam that door, the driver's side door, open. I've never had this happen in my life. I didn't even know what I was going to do. I went through a can and a half of de-icer trying to unfreeze the hinge on the door. This weather can go back to the cold, frozen reaches of hell from whence it came. I'm so done.
Dude, we're getting some more tomorrow, just so you know.
What?
We've got another winter weather advisory tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
It's freaking, and super cold. But you know what? Even though it's a crappy weather day outside, it is a great day to be a Hilltopper fan because our teams are rolling. There's good news abounding everywhere.
Oh yeah.
What I think we're going to get into tonight is first I want to talk some WK draft news. We have another player declared for the draft. I want to talk some women's basketball, good and not as good news, and then talk about the men's team, the couple of road wins they've got on this trip they've had. And then at the end of this, we want to wrap it up talking about kind of a discussion about which are the big three teams. And I consider the big three teams in basketball in this state to be Western, UK, and Louisville. Sorry, NKU, Murray, and Moorhead. I just don't know that much about you. I like the Norse. Maybe they'll make the tournament. I don't know. They did last year. But I'm just going to talk about kind of the ones that we have an affiliation with, our secondary fandoms and our primary one. How does that sound?
Oh, yeah, I agree completely. Again, being a Western grad, EKU can suck it, but the other teams
are... That's how much I hate them. I forgot they existed.
Well, I don't want to say I hate them, but they if you think of basketball schools in Kentucky, obviously the biggest brother is UK. The next oldest would be Louisville. And I mean, it even supports the rivalry kind of spirit because they're oh, well, everybody thinks about them, they never think about us, and then, of course, Western's number 3. And then the other schools are just happy mistakes.
Murray and Moorhead have had some good runs, but just not recently.
No, yeah. And I mean, I hope they do well. I don't want to say that I hope they do bad, but like you said, it's just a team you don't think about.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, since we beat EKU, I hope they make the tournament. I hope that they have a really high RPI because it makes our resume look that much better.
Exactly. Completely fine with that. So I'll let you go ahead and lead off.
Yeah, and I want to get your opinion on this because you are our resident football expert. So we all know that a lot of the seniors, for Western's football team, especially the centerpiece, Mike White, is going to go to the draft. He's there. I don't know if he's going to go to the combine, probably not, but he's showing up on some draft boards. He may make an NFL roster next year. But there's some breaking news today that our boy Iggy, Joel Iyiegbuniwe, our favorite name to pronounce, is going to forego his senior season on the Hill and enter into the 2018 NFL Draft. What are your thoughts? Because I got a couple.
I think it's a good move for him. I support any young man that thinks that they need to go to the draft. But correct me if I'm wrong here. Isn't there a process that you go through and they give you 3 answers? Is that correct? Kind of heard the KSR guys talk about this.
I know that guys can go, without declaring their name, I know they can go and get draft grades.
Yes.
I know that professionals will look them over and say, okay, we think that you are a 1 through 4 round or 4 through 7. We think you're one of those, ranges, and then the guys will come. They can, and then at that point they kind of mull it over with their families and whoever they, if they're talking to an agent or not, and then figure out if they want to go or not. So I guess he must have got some good grading because he has declared. I was
going to say if he hasn't been graded, he definitely needs to grade. Now I'm pretty sure you can't talk to an agent. From what you just said,
well,
I don't think you can legally talk to an agent as far as getting signed or anything like that. But if he did grade out well, then I'm completely behind him. I think all these young men should try, and that are getting the grade to go pro should do it. I support them as far as that goes because if I was in their position, I'd be going for the money too. Because school will always be there. They can earn millions of money, millions of dollars, lots of monies. They can earn millions in the pros, and as long as they have financial smarts about them, then they will be able to go back to school eventually and get the degree they need to, and live out their retirement with that. But I support him completely. Mike White. First off, I think he's a great athlete, but quarterbacks are a dime a dozen in the pros. And great quarterbacks are, coming out of the woodworks in the pros. I can easily see Mike White being a practice team guy, kind of like Brandon Doughty.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else declared? I'm trying to look up right now and see.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard any, of the official declarations. I know we got guys. Mike White wasn't really I've declared because he's not foregoing anything. He's graduated and moving on. Now, I will say that, especially this class, there are, right now I want to say there's about 8 quarterbacks that people think could actually play in the league, Mike White being one of them. He's got fairly decent draft grades, at least for, coming out of Conference USA. He, right now, as sad as this is, I saw a mock draft, and you got to take those for what they're worth, right? Because everybody's just peeing into the wind, this time of year. But they've got him going in the 7th round to the Browns.
See, I don't see that.
I feel like he does not go to the Browns.
Well, I hope he doesn't either, because the Browns are just a dark abyss of soul-sucking quarterbacks. But
absolutely.
What I see happening is the Browns have won the the draft selection year, which is the greatest meme ever. But they're going to go number 1, and I'm going to say it'll probably be Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield that goes there.
You think that Lamar Jackson or Baker? See, I am me, and then like all the other actual draft analysts. I don't think anybody's going to take a runner on Lamar until midway through the first round, beginning of the second.
And the reason, well, I don't know. The reason I say it's either going to be Baker or Lamar is because Cleveland needs somebody to pump up their fan base, and I think that one of those two guys could do that.
That's true. That's true. They're very dynamic players. They both bring, a lot of excitement. You've got both of them are Heisman finalists. Both of them Heisman winners actually in alternating years. So I could see that if you're going for, trying to make Cleveland not so sad. I don't know how you make Cleveland not sad.
It's a very sad city. Actually,
Cleveland, our rivers are on fire. Cleveland. Have you seen that YouTube video?
No, I haven't, but I will have to look that up.
It's awesome. We might link to that later because it's so funny.
That is hilarious. Let me see. I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that since 1997 or 98, that the Cleveland Browns have had 28 quarterbacks.
That sounds right. I have no idea.
That number just blows me away. Well, the reason I came up with that number is I was reading an article on, the history of the Browns, how they got their name, because I had somebody ask me, and I was like, I really have no idea. But for you Browns fans out there, it is named after one of their initial coaches, Paul Brown, way back when. I think it was in the 40s. So
I feel like I remember reading about this because that was also like one of the last times they were good.
Yes, that is correct. They won. I think they were in the AAC. It's AAFC. I'm sorry. It's the All-American Football Conference is what it was called, and then it consolidated with the NFL. The AAFC, the Cleveland Browns won like 10 years in a row in like the 40s or 50s. Was
it just them and like the School for the Deaf and the Blind?
I don't know who all was in that, honestly. I never looked to see who all was in there, but that was right before the 60s. So I want to say it was like 47 to 57. Let me look that up real quick. Which teams?
Yeah, no, you're good. I was just going to talk about getting back to kind of Iggy. I agree with you on his decision to declare. The dude is an absolute stud. I'm sure he'll be. I mean, he's not a first rounder, but he's going to finish somewhere in the middle. I think he'll get signed. He has an NFL body. He plays like he's already in the NFL. I will say it just on a selfish note. It makes me sad because though Sanford has signed a pretty good defensive squad, dudes coming in like we've always talked about. It's going to take a couple years for them to develop. We don't actually have that great of linebackers. I don't know if Holt's graduating or not, but you're talking about an already thin linebacking core, and he was one of the lead tacklers for the Tops last year. So we will miss him, but we wish him the very, very best, and that includes not getting drafted to the Browns because it is a black hole of just sadness.
Well,
but hey, listen, if he gets drafted to the Browns and he inks a $1.8 million contract, then you know what?
It's worth it.
Heck yeah, go into that black hole of abyss and open that IRA.
Okay, teams that were in the AAFC. Okay, you should know this. You should know one of them. The Browns.
Because they're the Niners. Were the Niners in it back then?
Yes, they were. The 49ers, the Colts, the Dons merged with the Rams, while the Bills, Yankees, and Hornets folded. The enlarged league was renamed the National American Football League. So there you go.
Went then to,
do I know?
I said I guess that then led to the NFL and the AFL, and then they went together.
Oh, yeah. And then they consolidated and all that. But I want to just keep echoing what you're saying about Iggy. Iggy was he was a big pillar. I mean, if you go look at his stats every game, I mean, he's getting like 15, 16, 20 tackles a game. He was he was a force out there, and it'll be sad to see him go on one side, but like you said, it's great for him. The ideal team for him to go to, in my perspective, would be the Patriots, the Houston. I'm serious now. Bill Belichick is a big defensive coach. Houston, J.J. Watt is a franchise player down there, which is ridiculous, first off. But If he could get on a team like that is a defensive first team, I think he could really thrive. He could make the money.
I wouldn't hate to see him go to other teams that are kind of defensive minded, and he could play with a buddy. If he went to the Seahawks, which I hate the Seahawks, but I would root for him, just like I root for George Fant, our resident left tackle. So he can have Fant. He could bro out with him the 1 year they shared on the tops together. You always got to love your Western dudes playing together. And then also kind of your young new hotness as far as defensive teams. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Absolutely. They're like the new Seahawks because they signed all this young defensive talent on their first contracts. And if I'm not mistaken, did they beat the Steelers today? Or last night?
I think you're right.
I think they did.
I think they did because... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was checking into the score because I was hoping the Titans would beat the Pats because I just want the Pats to lose.
Nope.
Oh, no, they got eat. They got absolutely eat.
Yeah, they got destroyed. But I think
which everybody saw coming, but you're just like, man.
I think you're... Yes.
To win. I'm so sick of the Patriots.
Okay, so the... the AFC North, Jaguars versus Steelers, it was 45-42 Jaguars. Honestly,
which is hilarious.
I would be fine if I'd love to see the Jaguars win one.
Yeah, because it's been a while since they've been good. So they've been truly good. Over within a decade.
But can they beat the Patriots and Bill Belichick? That's the big question for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see what the Steelers did against the Pats this year. Because. Transitive property, right? If the Steelers can beat the Pats and the Jaguars can beat the Steelers, actually twice, I'm pretty sure the Jags beat the Steelers in the regular season too before the playoffs, then maybe they can. I don't know. You also got the NFC to worry about.
And typically the NFC is usually stronger than the AFC, minus the Patriots.
It has been in recent years. It definitely has.
But let's see here. Oh, and. Minnesota's up 23-21 on New Orleans.
Well, that's a good game.
And New Orleans has the ball. So I'm gonna try and pull up the game cast of this real quick while we're talking. Cool. But go ahead and let's talk some Western. Talk some more Western.
Yeah. So back to the Hill, we have got women's basketball. So they played 2 games, both one home, one away. Since we met last. You'll remember that they were leading Conference USA. They were the heavy favorites. They played FIU the other night, and let me tell you about this game, dude. The Lady Toppers absolutely destroyed FIU.
Oh, did they?
Won 101-47.
That is great.
Yeah, that actually. So I'm sure you saw the score, but did you see that is a Conference USA record since the league has existed? It's a Conference USA record in the largest margin of victory.
Oh my gosh!
Ever.
That's great.
Record. And then I'll tell you another cool stat, another record that was set. So I mean, you got all the normal ones: Ivy Brown, 22 points; Taisha Brown, 22 points. 5 different topper players in double figures in that game. Someone else who did set another Conference USA or tie for a Conference USA record was finally remembered her name. Sorry, Raneem. Her name's Raneem. God, I had this down before we even got on. El Jadawi. She's a forward, very tall girl, very athletic. She recorded in that FIU game 23 rebounds and 13 points as her third double-double, and she is a freshman.
Let me tell you
23 rebounds. It's tied for the most ever in Conference USA. 23 in one game.
23 is a ridiculous number, first off. She just ate the boards up. Nobody touched her down there.
Ridiculous.
That is awesome. Yeah. I'm loving that.
Huge win.
Loving it. Yeah, and then of course you got that big UAB disappointment, but they're still doing good. I can't fault the girls,
No, and that's the thing, is that there's still probably, that UAB loss does kind of bring UAB into the conversation for winning the conference, right? Because it's a big win. Now, granted, it's home floor advantage, so okay, maybe that accounts for some of that 18 points, but And you know what? What we've kind of discovered is that on any given night, Western's got two girls, Ivy and Taisha Brown, who are going to score in double figures. They're going to lead the team. They just need, either like a Raneem or D. Givens or some of these other players to step up as well. They do in most games. It's just rough road environment after such a big win. Man, just kind of makes you sad they lost. I was hoping to keep the train rolling, but they got a big game coming up on Thursday against UTSA. That one, for anybody who might have the day off or want to take your kids, is like a kids' day for school. A bunch of the schools are going to come out, so that ought to be crazy loud with all the little munchkins screaming.
That'd be
awesome. It's going to be at 11 a.m. on Thursday. So it's going to be like a school, kind of school day thing. So it should be pretty cool.
Okay, quick update since we're kind of in a pause moment here. Saints just kicked a field goal. It is 24-23 with 25 seconds to go in the fourth. This is an exciting game for me. I'm not a Vikings fan, first off. I'm a Packers fan, so I hate the Vikings. Normally they suck, but so I'm kind of cheering. Yeah, I'm kind of cheering them Saints right now. Yeah, but I love good football, so I would love to see the Vikings. Ooh, they just got a penalty. False start, 5 yards. Minnesota, sorry.
Oh, good.
Okay, so back to basketball, sorry.
Yeah, so that kind of takes care of the women.
Yeah, well, you're talking women real quick. We don't really talk a lot about the ladies, so first off, me and you talked about this separately, but Louisville's women are doing fantastic.
Dude.
And I think they were number 3 the other day I saw.
Yeah, they're going to be number 2 whenever the poll comes out this week because they absolutely destroyed the number 2 team in the country. The same night that the Lady Tops beat the Breaks off of FIU, the Lady Cards beat the Notre Dame women's team by almost 40 points. It was 100 to 62 or something like that. I don't have the exact score in front of me.
Yeah, it was a crazy score though.
Coach Walls, Jeff Walls, for the Lady Cards, might be. I know that the UConn women have set records that will probably never be broken, but Jeff Walls belongs in that conversation. He absolutely does. I think this is the year that he could win the title.
He could. I'll give him that. Granted, UConn is kind of like the New England Patriots in football right now. They've kind of got a dynasty going, and they're like an Alabama in football. And
they're Alabama football, a UCLA basketball from the Wooden era.
They've got a dynasty really set up there, and it's kind of the mecca of women's basketball. So I would kind of like to see him win a few more before I start talking about him being bronzed alive. But if he wins a championship this year and takes Cards back the next year, I'd be glad to do that. But let's see. They're not. It looks like the ladies aren't going to play UAB again until maybe conference tournament. They've played Marshall twice.
Yep.
They've got. I'm trying to look down the schedule here.
They'll probably play MTSU again if their schedule.
Yes. You're right. They got MTSU February 15th. So, excuse me. Yeah, but I mean, basically everybody else is just in the schedule. North Texas, Marshall, Louisiana Tech, Atlantic, Old Dominion, Rice, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the season's quite over for the girls. I think they can pull through, especially with the way they're playing. Just start meshing and working together, and I think we'll see some changes come tournament time.
And that's what I think they're a tournament team. I think if they can just win, they'll need to win the conference championship, but they've done it almost every year. They've went to the championship. They've went to the tournament almost every year under Coach Hurd. I have full faith they will do it again. It doesn't define their season if they don't, but at the same time, I think they've got just as good a shot. One loss to UAB does not derail the season by any means.
Ladies, I want to challenge you to win the tournament this year and to win the conference championship this year. I'm not saying big tournament, but I'm saying conference championship. Y'all got it. You got this.
Win the whole darn thing. Go beat the Lady Cards in the Final Four.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I'm not going that far, okay? I mean, they got UConn and Louisville. I mean, that's 2 teams they'd have to face, one of them's bound to get them, but, I'm just saying.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, so, since you're Maestro tonight, I'll let you keep going, dude.
So moving on to the men's side of the round ball, so those of you that have been paying attention, we've had a big road stretch for the men's basketball team. They've been on the road for quite some time. They played at Marshall, they played at ODU, they played at Charlotte. We've already talked about the absolute tail whipping that they handed the Marshall men's team, 112 to 85 or 87. It was an absolute 87, I think. Absolute destruction. Then they went, and it was a very interesting and a very different game at Old Dominion. So coming into that game, Old Dominion is a 12-3 team. They were right up there in the RPI and the top 100 team. I want to say they had won like 7 at home. They're like undefeated at home. And, coming in off the Marshall game, you thought, okay, well, here the tops are this dominant paint touch team. You've got the high-flying Josh Anderson just making dunks everywhere. Justin Johnson and Dwight Colby just beating the brakes off of any forward or center that came their way. And it was the exact opposite in the Old Dominion game. Justin Johnson goes 5 of 7 from 3, scoring 25 points and 14 rebounds, which is another double-double, which he is just loading up this year. Darius Thompson, our senior transfer from Virginia, who is he's had the second triple-double in Western history. In the Marshall game, he ranked up 25 points, 4 of 5 from 3. Those were our leading scores for the game. It was crazy. Old Dominion is such a resume-building win, and that was an essential road hurdle. Because, man, it's hard to get decent road wins. It's hard for any team to go play away from their home and beat a team that is one of the best defensive teams, efficiency-wise, in the country. And that's what Old Dominion was. And Western beats them by 7 points in their house.
I can say, as conference-wise, Old Dominion is they could be possibly one of our newest rivals. I would be glad to throw them in there and kick Marshall out. I don't have the... I'm starting to... Old Dominion is always right there on our heels. You know what I'm saying? Football-wise this year, they were right there on us. Basketball...
Which much for this football season.
No, it's not saying a lot for football, but still, they had...
No, I know exactly
that was one play away, and Western would have lost that game.
Absolutely.
So, I could... Yeah, okay, so you were talking about their... they were at a 1-2... Yeah, you were right. It was a 7-game streak they had going there, and we snapped that very nicely. Very nice.
Very nice. How much?
How much? Very nice.
It's such a dated, dumb reference, but I don't care. I still love that movie.
Oh my gosh. Okay, quick update. Minnesota just threw a 61-yard touchdown pass.
Wow. To put it away.
Are you kidding me? 29-24. Dim Saints going home, guys. Hate to tell you.
Man, I really like Drew Brees. I would have liked to have seen him with another ring.
Yeah, Drew Brees. I think this might be one of his last years, sadly. What has he really done?
They never built a team around that guy. He holds the record for most the number of consecutive games with more than 300 passing yards in history, and the dude's stats are just stupid. They just never built a defense, so he had to score 60 points to win a game. It's just I'm not going to rant on how good Drew Brees is. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks. He just had never had a team. It just ticks me off.
Drew Brees is almost like the modern-day Dan Marino, though.
Because he never had a team?
Yeah.
You get, one ring, and I don't know that much about Dan Marino.
Dan Marino never got a ring, one. And Drew Brees, he's got the one, but neither one of them really had anybody, but they were both exceptional quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's just sad.
It's sad, but who cares?
Go Vikes go, right?
He's making millions and doing commercials.
What is their thing?
Whose thing? What?
The Vikings have some kind of saying, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's Canada. I don't know. I don't care.
Minnesota, you know. You got to talk through your nose even from Minnesota.
Yeah,
Sound like you're from Canada, eh?
Yeah, hey, I'm from Minnesota. I like the Vikings. Ooh. That's why you're always losing in the NFC North. Anyway, leave my hate of Minnesota alone for a little bit. I've never been to Minnesota, first off, listeners, but I just know how big of a thorn you all are in the Packers side. And if Aaron Rodgers had been healthy this year, we'd be right there instead of sitting at the couch watching y'all play. So
that's another guy whose team has let him down year after year after year. Is Aaron Rodgers, dude.
You're right. I mean, but his
one-man show up there.
His real only weapon is Jordy Nelson. I mean, forever that was kind of the same thing.
Blows a knee every other weekend.
Well, that's what when Peyton was kind of on the downhill fall there, he had Wes Welker. So I mean, it's kind of the same thing. But
yeah, basically,
Aaron Rodgers is still doing well. He's still healthy most of the time as long as he doesn't break something, which he's starting to turn into Romo.
But yeah, good to go Vikes. There you go. You drink from your Viking horns and have a good time up there in the frozen north.
You're getting a Brett Favre clap, guys.
Brett Favre clap. The Brett Favre clap is good. But yeah, so coming off, and one more thing about the Old Dominion game. First off, I would like to personally apologize for mispronouncing Mustafa's name.
I don't understand why you would mispronounce it though.
Well, I'll tell you how. His last name, Devin, is spelled D-I-A, the N-G-E, right? Diang is what it looks like.
Sure.
That is not how it is pronounced.
Oh.
He is from Senegal. Dude speaks 3 languages. Like he speaks English, French, and I think it's called Wolf. I don't know, but it's the Senegalese language.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah, he's super duper sharp. Really good kid. He's gonna do great things here. Just such a good dude. I've only up until now I've only seen one interview with him that Olivia Higgins did back months ago before the season. Anyways, personally apologize. I've been saying his last name Diang. His last name is pronounced June. J-U-N. June.
Yeah, okay.
Blow my freaking mind. I've been talking about this kid and how we can't wait to see him, how we need another center and all this crap, and I never looked at the game notes to get the actual pronunciation of his name because I am a doofus. So, Mr. Jun, I am sorry.
I would have said it the same way, though. Of course.
I'm so sorry. I will not do it anymore. I will call you Jun. I will get it right, and we will watch you kick butt. The reason I say that is because that ODU was the first game that he got cleared to play.
Wow.
Awesome, and he didn't score any points, and he was really rusty, but it doesn't matter. The dude hasn't played a basketball game in 2 years. It's just super exciting to have another big body down low to take some fouls and swat some shots.
I mean, if your name is Mustafa Diang, June, sorry, not Diang, it's June, and you move to another country, especially somewhere that is typically southern. I mean, Kentucky's one of those states that's...
Can't even pronounce our own names.
Yeah, I mean, we mispronounce everything. So, you kind of got to forgive people, okay? I'm sorry, dude.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I haven't heard him say anything about it. The first time I saw it was either Chad Bishop or Brad Stevens, I don't remember who, retweeting the Western Basketball Twitter, where they had said, hey, just so everybody's aware, his name actually is pronounced, because, he hasn't been on the call, so if you've been watching the games, you probably haven't heard his name called, because, he hasn't been eligible to play yet, and nobody's looking at the game notes, and so, except for maybe a few media members, so it's like, just so you know, it's pronounced J-U-N, like June, okay, holy crap.
Oh, that's a game changer.
What?
Oh, I said that's a game changer right there. That's hilarious.
It is. June. So, it's June. No, the best thing is the cheer that everybody gives him when he plays is just, moo! Because he's Mustafa. So, yeah. So, he literally just mooing loudly. It's awesome. He's such a, everybody go, anyone listening, go look at all the official Twitters of the Daily News of WKO, of Western Basketball. Go listen to this guy talk. He's such a soft-spoken, nice dude. he seems like he's got an out. He seems this way. I don't know the guy personally, but he just seems that way. He comes off really nice in interviews, and I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. I will pronounce your name correctly. Jude.
That is awesome, dude.
Yeah, it is. He started, or he got his first minutes. He didn't start. He got his first minutes against ODU. He didn't record any baskets or any meaningful stats other than he was there to, give Dwight Colby and Justin Johnson a breather. We move on to the game on Saturday, which was against Charlotte, at Charlotte. Tops open as a 12.5-point favorite. Got bumped up to 13.5. A lot of people lost a lot of money on that because Tops only won by 10.
Oh, wow.
This was like the opposite of the well-executed, smooth shooting like Marshall and Old Dominion games. This was gross. I'm sure when you were following it, you saw it, but like it was a low-scoring first half. It was like 28-20 at the half. It was just, ugh. Western ended up pulling it out 73-63, and they shot pretty well in the second half, but overall, it just was kind of a clunker. It's one they want to forget,
Yeah, I mean, but
it was
see,
gross. It was not good.
a lot of those clunkers, like you're talking about, though, are usually either high defensive games. I'm sure that Josh Anderson was probably covered most of the game, so he's not able to do those high-flying moves that he enjoys and we enjoy, but, you just got to see. Sorry, I was looking to see where this dude's from. So, where June is from. June.
He's from Senegal.
Yeah, but where the flip Senegal?
Senegal's in Africa, man.
Oh. I never took that test. I didn't know idea.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
Senegal's,
here you go.
It's
African.
I'm not sure which region, but yeah.
African countries, according to Devin. Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa. There you go. That's it. Madagascar.
That's all he's got.
That's all I got.
Madagascar. Can't forget Madagascar.
Libya. Got another one. Libya. Okay, I remembered a few.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember, but like even, yeah, my internet's so slow because my wife is watching Ella Enchanted. God awful movie. So glad I'm doing this.
Yeah, right.
But where in the flip is this? Yeah, I don't want directions to it because I can't get there from here.
Drive to the coast and start swimming.
Yeah, that was a funny little thing they used to do way back in the day. You'd type in like Japan.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember those? Yeah. You type in Japan and it's like, hey, drive to San Francisco, start swimming. And it's like, really?
Yeah, there was another good one. Do you remember the Lord of the Rings one they did?
No, I do not. What is that?
Yeah, so, the Boromir meme of one does not simply walk into Mordor. What they did is if you typed in Mordor as your destination and selected walking, it would just not show up, and it would say one does not simply walk into Mordor.
That is awesome. I love that.
It doesn't do it anymore, but that was one of those little Google Easter eggs they used to have, which was awesome.
They used to do, way before Pokemon Go, too, they used to do, you used to do Pokemon catching, and you could catch so many different Pokemon on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Fun fact for you. Okay. Apparently, that city is on the western coast of Africa. You know where those little islands are, like right off the coast of Africa?
Sure.
Okay, the west coast.
No, I have no idea. No clue.
Between Brazil and Africa, if you're playing Risk.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's a little set of islands. Well, Senegal is right inland of that, just east of it. It's really interesting. I mean, I didn't know they spoke French there, but yeah, good job for him. I'm glad he speaks Wolf.
No, I'm happy to have it. Dude was a 4-star recruit when he first got recruited by Syracuse, and so I mean, right now we've got 2 4-stars officially, playing for us. Got 2 more coming in next year. So it's.
Hey, I'm happy with it. He was ranked number 58 player in the nation in his class from high school, so cool with that.
Heck yeah, dude.
All you, buddy.
But yeah, so the last little bit, I mean, I kind of want to forget the Charlotte one. I mean, you get out of there with a win, even though you shoot 39% overall. Fun fact for you, right? Paul Blart style. Western hasn't lost a game since December 19th of last year.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty awesome. Coming up on a month since Western has lost a game. it's been the last loss was the Belmont loss, which was a heartbreaker.
Which they shouldn't have lost, but Belmont just shot the brakes off of everything. I mean, who shoots 14 threes in a half? I mean, those dudes were. That's one of those games that you're like checking the ball for flubber. I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, seriously. And that's what Belmont does. And they didn't cover them on the line. They had They had more open looks than they should have, and they knocked them down. So that's the one thing you hope is that Belmont can. I can't remember if Belmont and Missouri State are in the same. Missouri State are in the same conference. Either way, those are both quasi-tournament teams, and so the losses are bad but not terrible. The worst loss right now is the Ohio loss. That one was a clunker that, in a dead arena, Western just couldn't get their energy up to play. So you just got to take care of business the rest of the way. You finish January undefeated with wins against UAB and MTSU. You start looking like an at-large, which is what I want to talk about next, because I kind of want to go over the current bracketology that Western what their resume is looking at right now, and then talk about, like I said, which state of the Big Three do we think are having the most successful season? So bracketology for Western, right? Joe Lenardi's moving them in and out, right around 11 and 12. He's had them playing Seton Hall, who I think we could totally take. The Fighting Kevin Willards, former Louisville assistant. And he's also had them as either I think a 12 or 11 playing Auburn, which they're supposed to be really good this year. However, their best player just got pitched for the whole season for some sort of ineligibility violation stuff.
Wow.
So wouldn't hate to play them either as a 5 seed. That'd be a pretty good matchup for the tops.
Yeah. I agree completely there.
But that's where we kind of sit. The tops are at the crossroads, right? If you make it out of January undefeated, then you start looking like a 10 or 11 seed who could be an at-large bid. Again, this is assuming that you get good wins, quality wins against an MTSU who's currently like 38th, 35th, something like that in the RPI. You have to get these quality wins and not suffer any terrible ones, because even if you lose, which they will, one or two down the stretch, as long as you don't lose to like a Rice or like an FIU or an FAU, if you lose to Old Dominion down the road, or you drop the second one at MTSU, okay, no big deal. Anything more than that, you start looking at, okay, we got to win the conference tournament.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, it's like you said. It's a long ways away, but I mean, MTSU would probably be one of our best opponents coming up as far as conference goes, and Marshall. Hey, we haven't played MTSU yet.
No, the first one is a week from yesterday, so it's coming up this Saturday.
That's awesome.
I'm going to try to go to that one.
Yeah, 100 miles of hate, got to keep it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, MTSU. Of course, Marshall's going to be wanting to get some revenge on us the week after that. But, of course,
that one will be at Biddle.
Yeah. That'd be a good game to go to.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to make some of these Saturday ones. I can't make the UAB on Thursday night because, the whole, got to work on Friday thing. But I am going to try to get down next weekend to go see the MTSU. That'll be. I think they're almost sold out. There's only single seats available now.
Wow.
To purchase. Yeah, so it's pretty close to sold out. So the hashtag sellout diddle may end up taking place for the first time in God knows when. I don't even know the last time we sold it out. It's been years.
Oh yeah.
Against MTSU.
Yeah, and I mean, I could see it happening easily for MTSU. Of course, it depends on the weather too. I don't know what. Of course, if you live in Bowling Green, it's a lot easier to get there. But for us that live about an hour away, it's a little different story. Of course, yeah, like you say, that UAB game, that's late. And we're old.
Yeah, right.
Of course, that UTEP game's at 10, but that's at UTEP still, so.
Yeah, that's why that's that way, because they're in, like, freaking Mountain Time or Central Time or something.
Mexican time, yeah.
Mountain. Yeah, pretty much. San Antonio, pretty much.
But yeah, I'm happy with the way the guys are playing so far. I think conference play is going to be nice. just really don't see a big opponent coming out of our conference against us, you know?
Yeah, I think Western is currently the team to beat. That's what all these articles are talking about, is Western the team to beat in the conference. And I kind of agree with some of the stuff that I've read, that slightly, you know, because you've got two great wins in conference against people that were supposed to, you know, compete for the top in Marshall and Old Dominion. But you got to prove it against the other two that were talked about, UAB and MTSU. You beat and MTSU, sorry, has finally got it clicking. They just beat the pants off of, I guess, Southern Miss. I think they just beat.
Yeah. Okay.
Southern Miss or La Tech won. They beat by like 20 points. So, and UAB rolled whoever they played last. So, I think they might have it together now, Giddy Potts and crew.
Yeah, I mean, they could. I don't have the numbers as far as their last win in front of me, but that's well, we'll see. We've still got a week or so out. 6 days or so. So we'll just see. I'm sure the first meeting will be a little different than the second meeting. And I think that Old Dominion game coming up, the second one we're going to play, the February 24th game, I think that could be another clunker. Just going to throw that out there now. I think they're more of a defensive team.
Defense, it might be.
Yeah, it's more of a defensive team, and I think we'll just have to see how everything turns up.
Yeah, so kind of the last thing we can close out on, 3 in-state teams, Cats, Cards, and Tops. Who has had, so far, the most successful season? And I want to preface this by saying that I think success is, at least at this point in the season, it's subjective.
Yes.
I think you take your expectations coming into the season about how good or how bad you're going to be, and then you evaluate it. We're a little more than halfway through the season. You evaluate it at that point. And I think out of all 3 teams, I think that Western is further ahead and better than we thought, you know, after the whole debacle with that one guy, than we thought they would be at this point. And I think being ahead, comparatively, of where you thought you'd be at this point in the season makes them the most successful, subjectively, team in the state. More so than UK or U of L. What do you think?
If you're judging by what you just said, yeah, I agree. Not knowing these guys going into the season and kind of looking, you know, like, oh, okay, he was recruited by UK, that's cool. But he came to Western, so what's going on there? And then you see, hey, these guys are actually pretty good. And I think the expectation for Western basketball, year to year, I want to say it's probably pretty low from a fan's point of view. I know the teams were going to hold themselves in higher regard, but I think out of the 3 major teams in the state, I think that Western probably is the most improved. I'm going to say they're probably one of the better teams as far as their schedule goes, and their play is concerned. Kentucky always holds basketball in such high regards, and as far as the UK Wildcats, of course, you can't listen to John Calipari when he talks about the Wildcats. First off,
I just listened to his post game from the Vanderbilt game, and if I have to hear that man complain about 7 scholarship players one more time, I might have to drive to Lexington and headbutt him, because if I can get through his big Italian bodyguards, because we beat Purdue with 7 scholarship guys. I don't want to hear it, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. He always does this. He always complains every year about the players. We'll never make the tournament. We'll be lucky if we make the tournament. These guys are trash. Blah, 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 blah. Well, he's not saying they're trash, but basically he's just saying that.
He says, we're young. They just got to campus. They're young.
Exactly.
Yeah, Cal, and they're all top 10 players. They're all going to the NBA next year.
Well, a lot of them will, yes.
It's not the case this year. I understand, but still.
Yes, he always says that stuff year after year. But I agree with you. I'm trying to pull up their schedules, and my computer, there it is being junked tonight. I guess my internet's not doing so well. Just to see how they did, because I don't follow them as closely as obviously as I do this as obviously as I do. God bless it.
He's struggling over there.
I
No, but
always
the Cats,
struggle.
you start looking at their wins, right? And you start each season in basketball just like they do with football. Your blue bloods get the benefit of the doubt. So what's happened with Kentucky is they started out, as a fairly high-ranked team. A lot of people have them as a 3 to 5 seed right now. But the problem with Kentucky this year is that they're getting wins that are decent. They're top 100 RPI wins, but they're not getting, in the chances they've had to get huge wins, of which they've only had a couple. They haven't got them. The Kansas one is the first of the start of the season. That's your big shot to get a big RPI win. Now Kansas dropped off, so that loss is looking worse and worse.
Yeah, typically Kansas. Yeah, I know it's a bad loss for them against Kansas, but Kansas, if they're on, they're on. If they're off, they're off. They're not like a Duke, They just don't. I don't feel like they stick around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And a lot of years, they're also ones that get benefit of the doubt. And everybody complains about people getting calls in Rupp, which is true.
Yeah.
You do get a really good benefit of the doubt. But Allen Fieldhouse for Kansas is statistically the biggest home court advantage in foul discrepancy in NCAA basketball every single year. It's worse than Cameron. It's worse than Rupp. It is the most one-sided calls in the country.
Oh, I could easily see that.
Yeah, and they've tracked it.
And I mean, and of course, I would love to have robotic refs, but that's like a Jetsons thing, and it'll never happen.
That'd be great, though.
But people are still going to complain, even if there is a robotic ref, that it's that it's not fair. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, that thing's on the fritz. That thing's junk.
Yeah.
But like what you're talking about, it's scientifically proven that refs will call one way or the other depending on the crowd.
Yeah,
They are
it's just
easily
part of it.
influenced.
They track it.
Exactly, they're easily influenced with that stuff, and
It is what it is. You got to play better than what they're calling against you. That's all I got to say about it. Like that's just part of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing is that Kentucky is only going to have, they only have a few chances to get really big marquee wins this year. They're going to rack up a bunch of top 50, like 35 to like 65 RPI range wins, because that's what they're going to get in Louisville. That's what they're going to get in their conference with Texas A&M, and if they beat Alabama, and if they come back and if they play Tennessee again, they can beat them. They're going to mill around, that kind of thing. But like I was listening to the postgame show, and they were calling in talking about how everybody's saying Kentucky ought to be better. Well, it's hard to win on the road, and that's true. But and Vegas only had them as 2-point favorites at Vanderbilt. Blah 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 blah. If Vegas thinks that you're only 2 points better than a 6-10 team or a 6-9 team before that game started, that means Vegas doesn't think your team is awesome. They think you're right at the middle of the pack. And so that's why I think that it is so far not necessarily a disappointing season for the Cats, but it's not what they're used to. It's not what they're accustomed to, and it is a little bit of a down, not as successful as they would want season. And the same thing
I can agree with that. Of course, according to the numbers, Kentucky's actually 21st in the nation. They're second in the SEC, which the SEC is not a basketball conference. I'm sorry. You've got certain programs that are good basketball-wise, but they're typically not historically. Florida, is one of those historical programs. Kentucky, yes. Auburn, they're not, Alabama, Tennessee, those teams aren't teams that you think, oh my God, that's a basketball powerhouse. But, and even on Louisville's side, they're third in their conference right now, which is it is a disappointment, but how high do you have your goal set for the Louisville Cardinals, though? How far do you think they would go this year? If you're just first of the season, what did you think? Did you think they were going to go all the way?
Before Brian Bowen or after Brian Bowen left?
Before Brian Bowen.
Before he left, I thought this was at least in the Elite 18.
Okay.
And a lot of people, and that was kind of the consensus, was that they might make, with Brian Bowen and with Rick Pitino, before everything came out, you're talking about a team that was a disappointment in the tournament last year, but that was an absolute, great team down the stretch and was returning, a top scorer in Dang Adele, a senior point guard, the number 5 or 8 player in the country, and Brian Bowen, whatever he was. All these pieces. When he leaves and Pitino leaves, all bets were off. I will say that, and good news for Kentucky, right, is that Louisville win wasn't looking real good because Louisville wasn't doing great.
Yeah. With
wins against Florida State, who was like number 23 in the country, and a win yesterday against Virginia Tech, who Kentucky also beat earlier in the season, Louisville's RPI is up to 33.
Wow.
Again, the Florida State win was huge. So maybe, and they looked pretty complete in those 2 games, so maybe, just maybe, they've got it together a little more.
I hope so.
Like you said, they're tied for 3rd with Georgia Tech, so you just don't know.
I hope so. Of course, they're 1.5 games out of 1st. But of course, the ACC is a basketball conference. I was talking about how the SEC isn't, but the ACC is more of a basketball conference. You got Duke, North Carolina, boom, right there. Virginia. I mean, Virginia's another big powerhouse school.
Bless their hearts. They seem to always choke it out in the Elite Eight or Final Four, though. They haven't won a championship, and God knows when.
Well, yeah, but at the same time,
and I hate.
These are good teams, though, and this is stiff competition.
Virginia's an excellent team, excellent team, but they pain in the butt to watch.
Yeah, I'll give you that, but I agree with what you said, though. I think, of course, I don't really pay attention to basketball normally throughout, preseason stuff. I usually just start cheering around March, so bad basketball fan, I know.
Yeah, I'm dragging him through, folks.
Yep, he's literally, I'm kicking and screaming here. But I think Louisville's doing decent for what they've got. The car is on fire, metaphorically, but David Pageant's still driving it. Is that a fair analogy? I mean, don't get me wrong. All the components are there. I don't know if he's such an experienced driver. Does that make sense?
No. He's 32 years old. Come on.
Yeah, I'm 30, and I really would not want to coach the Louisville basketball team. That's not... If they offered me money, I'd be like, sure, I'll coach. I don't know shit about basketball.
Yeah, but just think if you were like the 3rd assistant for Western football, right? And then they said, and then they say, oh yeah, Devin, you gotta run the team now. And it's 2 days before practice starts. So
I'm like the quality control coach that's watching film all day? Yeah, that would be...
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's oh yeah, you're the one in charge of the roster, and you're also going to call the plays.
That's... it's a blessing and it's a curse, okay? Because he's going to be judged off his success here at Louisville. And that's not fair to him. Because he really... granted, he applied for the position, but at the same time, it was kind of thrust upon him,
Yeah. At the beginning of the season, he didn't expect to have to run the team.
No, and
before the season started.
Yeah, he was just thinking, hey, I'm, living the life, I'm enjoying this, and then you get thrown this in your lap, and it's oh my gosh,
Yeah.
So in that aspect, David Pageant is a hero of mine because I would literally be dropping deuces right now, thinking, what am I going to do with this team? But they're 13-4. That's 3-1 conference. They're in 3rd place with David Pageant. That's awesome. So hats off to them. Kentucky's going to be Kentucky. They're going to make they'll make the conference. They may even win their conference tournament this year. I don't know. I don't think they'll go to the tournament. If they make past the Elite Eight, I'd be surprised. They're just not a big defensive team this year. They're more of a, like Cal says, they're soft, and I agree. They're just not. Yeah, timid is a good word. They don't have that quote dog in them to, for instance, they're playing whoever, team goes down the court and scores. They don't really challenge it. They're just like, oh, well, I'm going to go down and score now. And it's like, that's not really how you should do that. You should challenge them more, Challenge the shot. Don't just accept it. But maybe, of course, it's a Kentucky team. It's still January. When we get deeper into February, we'll just see how they're at, where they're at.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't have anything else on my little, I'll do like, was it Tony Rose who always did the sheet, like he'd rattle his sheet of paper? Him and that, and, not Tony Rose. Who am I thinking of? Tony Rose is the Bowling Green guy.
Are you thinking about Rome? You talking about the ESPN guy?
Rome. There's another guy. His name was like Tony. I can't remember now. His producers run his show. That's all I know.
It's not Tony Melito.
Always, like, shake his paper over the radio when he's like, my sheet here, and he could be just crumpling a random sheet of paper. You don't know. Mine's actually a game sheet, folks. I actually wrote down some notes once.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like I said, I really didn't have anything because I've actually started back to school on another class for some reason, and I really didn't do anything. So.
Yep, Devin is here for opinions and to ride this pony into the sunset.
That's right. As long as the pony wants to go.
That's right. As long as they keep winning, we'll keep talking. Well, we're going to keep talking if they start losing. But we'll just be happier if they keep winning.
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't have anything else. Just everybody show out. Like I said, single seat tickets are the only ones available for MTSU. Go down on Thursday if you're in Bowling Green. I'd kill to be in Bowling Green. To be able to just drive 10 miles down the road and give me a $20 ticket to watch the Tops play. So, sell out Diddle. This is posted on YouTube, iTunes. We'll link to it on our Twitter. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. Leave us a comment. Give ratings and comments on iTunes. That always helps us out. Share this with your friends. Tell everybody what we're doing.
And don't forget to smash, dunk, or whatever you want to call it, that like button down there at the bottom, and just show us your support if you enjoy what you're hearing. Again, like Jake said, sell out Diddle, and show up on Saturday, January 20th for the MTSU game, because guess what, guys? It's 100 miles of hate, and we just got to show them how much we hate them.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time, hopefully with 2 more HillTopper victories. Good night, and go Tops.